La Biennale on Air. Welcome to La Biennale on Air, the official monthly podcast of La Biennale di Venezia. In under 30 minutes, we'll take you behind the scenes of our 130-year-old institution, uncovering both well-known and hidden stories. You'll hear from remarkable guests across all our disciplines: art, architecture, cinema, dance, music, theatre, and the historical archive. To understand the present, we need to revisit the past, so we'll bring you exclusive gems from the collections of our historical archive. But we're also looking ahead, spotlighting fresh perspectives and new voices. And yes, there will be surprises along the way. With the 69th International Festival of Contemporary Music having just drawn to a close, this episode puts music front and centre. We kick off with an intimate chat with Caterina Barbieri, Artistic Director of the Biennale Musica, followed by a brief yet enlightening exchange with Meredith Monk, recipient of the 2025 Golden Lion for Lifetime Achievement, as we explore how sound can become a language of transformation. You'll then meet more artists from La Stella Dentro, the Star Within, and travel to Istanbul for Amfibio Sound Days, the third leg of The Wind Makes the Sky. La Biennale di Venezia in the Footsteps of Marco Polo, a special project by our historical archive. Finally, you will have the chance to look back on timeless moments from our cinema archives. Interwoven throughout are musical excerpts by the young artists of the Biennale College Musica 2025, Res, Morgana, Francesca Fabrizi, Luca Aaron, and Jasmine Morris. These works premiered at the Biennale Musica 2025 and are presented here in a specially curated podcast edition. This is La Biennale on Air. Happy listening.
In the previous episode, we got a little taste of what the 69th International Festival of Contemporary Music might have sounded like. From 11 to 25 October, we had the full feast. During the festival, we invited the Artistic Director Caterina Barbieri to join us for a drink just outside the LSD Centre. La Stella Dentro Centre. Don't get too excited. The LSD Centre was an innovative space inside the Arsenale, dedicated to deep listening, gathering and exchange. There might have been some drinking as well. Seated with Caterina sipping on a margarita, always in a very professional way, we talked about music, not so guilty pleasures, Venice, and Venice talked back. Listen for yourselves. La Stella Dentro, the Star Within, is such a poetic title. What does your Star Within look or sound like?
I think the star within is a poetic image, as you said, and for me, it's music. Obviously, it's the power of sound to open to a wider dimension, and its desire for the infinite, and this thirst for the infinite, and. For me, it's just the vibration of her, so sound as vibration, and it's something that permeates the cosmos. And in my specific practice is a sound that I produce through my instruments, but somehow it's also like a symbol of the vibration that permeates the cosmos. So it's what's in the Indian culture could be explained as the Om, permeating sounds.
Your first edition of the festival felt deeply in tune with Venice. What music or sound world do you associate with this city?
I think for me, the most striking experience of Venice is, in terms of sonic word, is the silence of Venice. This is what was striking for me when I first came to the city. But it's an interesting silence because it sort of amplifies the sounds, because you become more attentive and careful, and you start listening to the sounds because of this condition of silence. So I think this is extremely musical because music stems and sprouts from silence, and silence is a very fertile condition for musical imagination. So I think Venice is extremely musical in a way because of this presence of a silence. And then, of course, the landscape of Venice, which is made of water and light and motion, is a highly musical language for me. Sometimes when I walk through Venice, I see music, just the alphabet of light and reflections.
You've described music as participation, empathy, and deep listening. In your experience, how can music move beyond performance to become a space of real connection or transformation?
I think the very act of sharing music is participation, because to play an instrument means to produce a sound that eventually will struck the ears of your listeners, and the listeners start vibrating together with the musician. So it's actually it's a physical experience that is accessible for everyone. So I think music is always to be shared, and and the nature of music is collective in a way, because it brings different bodies together, and it makes different bodies resonate together. So and this is something connected to the theme of the festival too, how music can be understood as a resonance and an experience that connects us to the outside world. I often think of music as a spiral that connects the inside and the outside, and the microcosmos and the macrocosmos, and material and immaterial. So this motion from the inside to the outside is the star within, is like going inside to find an opening to embrace a wider dimension, the cosmic dimension.
On a lighter note, do you have any guilty pleasures in music? Something, I don't know, you secretly love that might surprise us?
Maybe pop music could be like my guilty pleasure in a sense, although I don't feel guilty when I listen to it. But I really like Italian pop music, not necessarily the present times music, but more going into the past and there's like iconic names. And I think one of my biggest guilty pleasure is Vasco Rossi. I'm a big fan, and both of his music and him as a person. I recently watched a documentary about him, and is a really wise man, and I follow him on Instagram. He always has like these gems of wisdom to share, and I find his songs really innovative and extremely like, you know, like this, like melodies you cannot resist to, and also the lyrics are always very profound yet extremely accessible. So Vasco Rossi is one of my biggest star.
Thank you, Caterina.
Some people write songs, some people sing, and then there's Meredith Monk, who basically asked, what if the human voice didn't need lyrics, genre, or permission? Vocal adventurer, sound wizard, voice shapeshifter. Since the 1960s, she's been turning sound into magic, showing everyone that the human voice is literally limitless. And now, Meredith has just walked off the stage at the Biennale Musica 2025, clutching her golden lion for lifetime achievement. A fancy name for "You've blown our minds for decades. Thanks for that." We grabbed a few minutes with her right after the award ceremony at Ca' Giustinian. Here's what happened when we sat down with a living legend. Meredith, this golden lion for lifetime achievement celebrates your career, a lifelong journey devoted to sonic exploration. What does receiving this award mean to you?
Well, it means the world to me, especially coming from the Biennale in Venice, because the Biennale has changed my life over the years. And it just is such, I think artists, what they really need is encouragement. Gertrude Stein, the great writer, said, an artist needs encouragement, encouragement, and encouragement. And so it just encourages me to continue. So it means a lot to me.
Now let's time travel. New York, 1960s. You bump into young Meredith just starting out. What guidance or wisdom would you offer her?
I would say believe in yourself more. I think like I deeply did probably, and that's how I was able to continue. But I think that sometimes I just wasn't aware of, what I was given. So I would just say, what the beatniks would say, dig thyself.
Meredith Monk doesn't just make sound, she builds worlds where listening becomes transformation. She shows that the human voice isn't merely a tool, it's a universe, playful, fragile, powerful, capable of leaving a cosmic-sized imprint on your soul. Thank you, Meredith, for your life's work, your fearless imagination, and your endless invitation to listen deeply and with wonder.
After such a memorable conversation, we now turn to other voices from the festival. Artists whose music, ideas and experiments help to shape the sonic constellation of La Stella Dentro, the star within. Each responds to a single personal question, a fragment of thought that reveals a deeper resonance, a connection between sound, self and the world. We begin with Carl Craig, a legend of Detroit's second techno wave, whose pioneering electronic work explores the city's rich Afrofuturist heritage through a cosmological lens, sound as a means of imagining new possible futures. This year's Biennale Musica theme, The Star Within, sees music as something cosmic and transformative. How does this idea speak to you? When you play, are you exploring outer space, inner space, or both?
When I play music, I'm exploring my adventures as a human on Earth, my imagination that goes into otherworldly territories, but also how the sound is bouncing off of walls and through corners and reflecting on people's bodies, but also how those frequencies make our bodies move and how they touch our spirit and soul.
From a techno icon to a poet of club culture, Doreen J. Cunningham, better known as Actress, joined the festival in a rare transgenerational encounter with the diva of the diode, 5-time Grammy Award-nominated composer Suzanne Ciani. We asked him what advice he would give his younger self, especially in light of this collaboration.
Well, the thing is I'm at a very different point in my music making experience now. So I feel like I'm past that point where I would necessarily give myself any further advice other than to always remain try to always remain present and in the moment, and always to maintain a level of focus that enables me to express and take time with my ideas. When I was younger, I was much more, I would say, certainly much more frantic in the studio, and you could say a little bit more chaotic as well. And but part of my practice has always been to strip things away and to try not to overcomplicate things, and to try and keep the complexity as simple as possible in terms of its expression, so I try to maintain less peaks and troughs and more of a steady line, particularly when I'm performing, and even more so when I'm in the studio. So it's much more about tranquility these days than chaos and things like this. But yeah.
At the Teatro Malibran, we then met Austrian composer and guitarist Christian Fennesz, who 20 years after the release of his album Venice, revisited this masterpiece of ambient and glitch music in a live version specially conceived for Biennale Musica. Christian, do you feel Venice soundscape has changed? What elements of the city's unique acoustic character continue to inspire you the most?
Well, first of all, I think it hasn't changed much, because there's still no cars. There's still the sound of the water sometimes. You still have the little old lanes where sound seems to travel in mysterious ways, like always. And what's changed is the tourists are more. You hear them sometimes, but not in areas like this. It's quiet here, for example. So I don't think Venice has changed at all. It remains the same thing, which is great. I have changed. I'm older. I have different techniques in working. I have different approaches. So I had to make a mix of both, like the past and the present.
As these voices from La Stella Dentro, the Star Within, fade into the ether, we thank all the artists who share their sound and vision. Remind us that music knows no bounds, that it can cross galaxies and bring us closer. That's why sound can carry us to the Bosphorus in a heartbeat, and Istanbul, a city of encounters, sets the stage for a special dialogue.
And now, let us immerse ourselves in the enchanting fairy tale atmosphere at the gateway to the east, Istanbul. Here, at the beginning of October, La Biennale unveiled the third chapter of the special project by its historical archive, The Wind Makes the Sky. Following in the footsteps of Marco Polo, as part of the celebrations marking 700 years since the Venetian traveller's death. After its debut in Hangzhou, China, and its subsequent stop in Venice, the travelling installation Amfibio continued its journey in Istanbul, thanks to the collaboration with the Istanbul Foundation for Culture and Arts, IKSV. From the 2nd to the 5th of October, Amfibio Sound Days inhabited this performative and meeting space with 4 days of performances by local composers and musicians, engaging with the structure's sonic potential. The program showcased Istanbul's vibrant music scene, tracing a shift from music to sound that echoed the city's urban and acoustic landscape. On this occasion, curator Luigia Lonardelli met Turkish artist Cevdet Erek, creator of Amfibio.
Cevdet, how did the design behind Amfibio come about, and what are its visual references?
Hi, Luigia, and hi to everybody listening at the moment. So, the main idea about the design of the structure that we're in at the moment, or we are sitting on at the moment, was first the mobile structure that would change its shape in various scales in each location. Each location, I mean, the first one was in Hangzhou in China, then in Venice, and now in Istanbul. So it's a small gathering space or also a place for an individual, but also a hybrid place in the sense of it becomes a stage with people, or just for seating areas for people in its own scale, of course, in a small scale. And now we're in the big open place in front of Fesane Art Istanbul, an art center restorated and now being run by the Greater Municipality of Istanbul. And then it has, in a way, it's a sounding architecture because there's a sound system implemented in it. Now you are hearing a part of that, a continuous loop. As we are sitting in one place, you just have this continuous loop in here, but that's basically sending sounds to each direction. So someone moves around and then there's all these minimal changes and combinations of the sounds. And it's made of wood, actually. I could say it's a warm place. It doesn't really protect you from rain, let's say, but it has some shades. And then visual references could be softly into some wooden architectures, I would say, of this land, but also where it landed before, like in China, in some regions. Then it also tries to respond to the architectures around. Here it's the famous Fesane building. We're just installed, we're just placed in front of it. So there's kind of a sense of symmetry, like reflecting the building that we're facing, but also some conscious disruptions to that symmetry.
And for the Amfibio Sound Days, for the first time, the work poses its sound, which we are now listening, blended with the sounds of the city around us to make room for other artists who are hosted inside it.
So we had these 4 days of quite altering, not genres maybe, but like ways of doing sounds and doing musics. And then it's very interesting to see how people, passers-by, just regulars who visit the space, are finding themselves in kind of this sounds going all around, in a mild way, I would say. So it's a very good chance now, finally, we see how performers and audiences are using the structure. And of course, our sounds are like fading away before they start. We're basically experimenting with these different conditions, and then probably it's going to be enlightening the next coming round, wherever the work, the project, and Amfibio goes to.
Last October 10 marked a particularly significant anniversary, the 40th year since the death of one of the most influential, irreverent and seminal filmmakers of the 20th century, Orson Welles. Not everyone is aware that the great American director maintained a long-standing relationship with the Venice International Film Festival. From the late 1940s to the early 1960s, continuing through to more recent tributes that revived posthumous works. The historical archive of La Biennale is rich with testimonies and materials documenting this glorious yet troubled connection between the creator of Citizen Kane, the festival, and Venice itself, which often served as the backdrop for several of his films. Peter Cowie, one of the foremost cinema historians, founder and general editor of the annual International Film Guide for 40 years, and author of the volume Happy 75th, A Brief Introduction to the History of the International Film Festival, briefly retraces Welles' Venetian stages, offering us an unprecedented insight into this historical episode, which today seems to have assumed almost mythical proportions.
Venice was a city almost made for Orson Welles, a city full of beauty, of fantasy, of bold and dramatic art at every turn. He visited the Mostra for the first time in 1948 with his screen adaptation of Shakespeare's Macbeth. Enchanted with La Serenissima, he returned over the following 2 years to shoot scenes for his second Shakespeare film, Othello. The Contarini spiral staircase at the Palazzo in San Luca and the Doge's Palace Gate can be seen in the finished film. Accompanied by his friend and actor Joseph Cotton, Welles came to the Mostra in 1951 for a screening of Othello, only to find that the print did not live up to his expectations. Othello was withdrawn, but would go on to win the Palme d'Or in Cannes the following spring. In 1962, Welles hoped that the trial would open the Venice Festival. But the final print did not reach the festival in time, and after waiting as long as possible, the authorities were obliged to replace it with West Side Story as the Mostra's opening film for that year. In 2015, the Mostra arranged the first ever showing of Welles's unfinished TV version of The Merchant of Venice, shot in 1969 at the original behest of the American TV network CBS. The film was restored and partially assembled at the Munich Film Museum, and later, using the original script and composer's notes, a version running around 35 minutes could be screened in Venice as a pre-opening attraction alongside Othello. The festival also arranged a sidebar exhibition of 12 cigar boxes, each painted by Welles in honor of a Shakespearean character, including Macbeth and Othello. During the 75th Mostra celebrations in 2018, Welles's dream project, The Other Side of the Wind, was unveiled in a version compiled and edited by Welles's close confidant, Peter Bogdanovich, and presented by Netflix. It proved an emotional occasion, with messages being read from both Welles's daughter Beatrice and the director's final companion, Oya Kadar.
We thank Peter Cowie for this valuable contribution and now turn our thoughts to another giant of cinema, who sadly passed away on September 16, Robert Redford. An iconic face of the new Hollywood era, an eclectic figure in American independent cinema, and a founder of festivals. This Sundance Kid also left his mark on the Venice International Film Festival throughout his long acting and directing career. His first film, at the Mostra, was presented in 1972, The Candidate, followed by Legal Eagles in 1986. In 2012, he presented his final work as a director, The Company You Keep. Yet it was in 2017 that La Biennale honored him with the Golden Lion for Lifetime Achievement, alongside his lifelong colleague Jane Fonda, prior to the screening of Ritesh Batra's Our Souls at Night. These are the words Robert Redford spoke during the awards ceremony, words that remain profoundly moving to this day.
I like to use a metaphor here about the mountain, because for me, as an actor, it's always been about the climb up the mountain, and that's where the work is. If you ever get to the top of the mountain, then there's nowhere to go. So I like the idea of being on the climb up the mountain where all the work is, and to me, that's what it's all about. It's about the work. And so having said that, and I want to also say how much it's meant to me to work with Jane, because it's not often that you find someone that you get totally in sync with and develop a rhythm of not only understanding but compassion and also objectives. So I've enjoyed that with Jane over the years, which is about, what, 47, 48 years?
More.
It's more?
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry I brought that part up. But at any rate, it's been about the climb up for me. And so having said that, let me move over to Venice and Italy. It's very special for me to be here in this country because many years ago, I spent a good deal of time here when I was between 18, 19 years old, when before I became an actor, I wanted to be an artist. So I went in Florence to the Scuola Belle Arte behind the statue of David. And my time there had such an impact on me that has stayed with me ever since. So for me to be back here, to be with Jane, to be with this film, but also to be back in Italy under such wonderful circumstances. So let me just thank you for having us back. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And that's a wrap on La Biennale on Air, your all-access pass to the Venetian vibes shaping culture right now. From vocal wizardry to the sonic fire of the Biennale Musica 2025, we soaked up sounds and ideas that engaged the senses and ignited profound reflection, from Venice to Istanbul, and even up among the stars. We hung out with icons like Orson Welles and Robert Redford. We've zipped across cities, disciplines, and dimensions, catching those electric moments that flip how you see, hear, and feel the world. So take it with you. Let a rhythm loop in your head. Let a sound jolt your soul. Or let one tiny voice spark something wild. Maybe a glimpse of the future. Maybe your next great idea. So crank that volume up. Hit follow, bring a friend, and tag along for the next ride. Same spot, fresh insights, and uncharted experiences. Because the next beat could take you anywhere. And speaking of anywhere, it's the last month to visit the Biennale Architettura 2025, open until November 23rd, and catch the Gens public program in full swing. Workshops and conferences you can't miss. Check our website and make the most of the 19th International Architecture Exhibition's finale. And hey, don't ghost us. Drop your thoughts, hot takes, or wild ideas in the comments. We want to hear what's buzzing in your brain. This is La Biennale on Air. Catch you later. A big ciao from Venice. La Biennale on Air is a podcast produced by La Biennale di Venezia. The voices you are hearing are those of
Matilde Vigna.
and Marco Quaglia. Mixing and audio editing are by Citre Tecnologie e Organizzazione SRL. The music in this episode is by the Biennale College Musica 2025. Artists Res, Morgana, Francesca Fabrizi, Luca Aaron, and Jasmine Morris. The podcast is curated by the editorial activities and web office and the press office of La Biennale di Venezia. Cesare Bisantis, Valentina Campana, Claudia Gioia, Ornella Mogno, and Marta Zannoner.